Awesome. So hi everyone, good evening. Welcome to this 1 hour 15 minutes webinar. Again, a topic that a lot of people have been requesting for, not so much in colleges, but mostly in the corporate. After generative AI came in, a lot of companies are interested in no code and low code. Some of them, of course, do have the paid version of Chat GPT or Gemini. So they do have access to it. It's just that it's quite difficult to know where to start, right? So that is exactly what I want to focus on. But I want the expectation setting to be very clear. So the first thing I'll do is to give you the flow so that you know what all I'll be covering in the next 1 hour 15 minutes, right? So I'll be working on Chat GPT. Even though now, even in Gemini, you can upload files and get the Python code and even run it within the Gemini environment. Remember that the ability to upload and download files are only available in the paid version, both on ChatGPT and on Gemini. At the moment, the entry price point is $20 per month. That is about 2,000 rupees as a monthly subscription. This is the flow of the workshop today. You can ask me questions on the chat window throughout the session. As much as possible, I will try to answer it then and there. If I feel that the answer is going to take a lot of time, then I might park it towards the end of the session in the last 5-10 minutes. If the question is unrelated to what we are doing today, then I might ask you to connect with me online later. But to the best of my ability, I'll try to answer all your questions. But I would encourage that any question that you have, which is a little broader, something which is very important to you, but probably something which is very individual to you and not for the larger audience, you can ask me at the end, and then I'll decide whether I want to answer it right now or later. Please do watch the session again. A lot of topics that I'll be covering today are very technical. Even though I'll not be writing Python code, I do want to teach you how Python works, right? For those of you who are non-programmers. Now, why is it important for us to learn Python if you're not going to write it? See, even if ChatGPT is writing the complete code for you, even to make that last mile change, the last 5%, you still need to understand how it works. Even if you don't have to change it and it works perfectly, and you're presenting to a client, how will you explain to the client how the code is working, right? The files that I'm using today, the Excel file, the folder, and the PowerPoint that you are seeing right now, all of this will be shared along with the session recording. So I want to do a little bit of visualization and a little bit of ETL. So I'll show you how to connect not just to one file, but to a number of files, and how to append, how to merge, how to do the data cleaning. Pretty much what you do in Excel, we can do it much, much better, more efficiently, work with larger data sets without almost writing a single line of code, right? But first, something exciting. Let us do the data visualization part. Now, the first thing I'll do is to take a file, and I want to show the columns that are there. So I have this file with me here. Many of you would have seen this file before. This is the Global Superstore Orders dataset. There are many versions of it freely available on the internet. The reason this dataset is very popular is because this data is also used by Tableau for a lot of their example files that they create. So what we have with us is 15 columns. There are 51,290 rows plus one extra row for the heading. And the data is for a company that is selling products around the world. So we have the order date, ship date. The order date is for 4 years. Then we have the customer. There are a few hundred customers we have. Then we have 5 columns that represent the geography. So the city, state, country, region, and the market. Then we have the category and the subcategory. So the category is the parent, furniture, office supplies, technology. And then under these categories, there are 17 subcategories which have been given here. The business is also selling in 3 different segments. So that would be consumer, corporate, and home office. And finally, we have 4 numerical columns. So we have the sales, quantity, discount, and the profit, right? So I'm going to load this on ChatGPT. So let me open a new window. And all I have to do is to drag and put it here. Now, the very first thing you would like to do is to understand, what is the data? So I'm going to ask it to describe the columns. Or you can even go one step back and say, not even describe, just show me the columns. Now, what it does is it will automatically write the Python code for you. And remember, this is why learning Python is so important, because Python is the language of choice on both Gemini and on Chat GPT. Also, now Python has become generally available in Excel, which means that if you have Microsoft 365, you will see that under formulas, we have Python here. So learning Python now is non-optional. It is not just an added skill. It is a must-have skill for everyone, right? But as you can see, it is writing the Python code. This is not a Python workshop, so I'll not explain the code to you line by line, but I'll just very broadly tell you what is happening. Whatever you see with the hash is the comment. That means that first it is importing the necessary library. That would be pandas. Then we are loading the file. This is the file name, Global Superstore Orders. Then in a variable Excel data, it is basically saving the file. But remember, the file can have multiple sheets in it. So now we want to get the sheet names from that file. And as you can see, right now there's only one sheet in it called Orders Compact, right? Next, we are loading the data from the identified sheet. Remember, right now there's only one sheet called Orders Compact. So we are loading it. As you can see here, we are selecting Orders Compact and we are loading it into something called data. Now remember, these names don't really mean anything. I could have written my data as well, right? And then I'm saying data.columns.toList. And as you can see, it shows us a list of columns. And the best part is that whatever code is being written, I can literally copy it and run it on a different Python environment, and it will work perfectly. So that's the first one. But moving forward, this is okay. I mean, it is showing us the list of columns. But I would also like to describe the columns, right? So what I say is, describe columns. I'll put a thanks to acknowledge that so far it is doing everything correctly. So I said, thanks, please describe the column. Now what it does is it continues the code. If you notice, because it had given a name to the data called data, you will notice here it is saying data.describe. Very straightforward. And as you can see, now it tells me the count, unique, top, frequency, and the first value. Now, here's the thing, right? How does it know what is it that we wanted to describe? For example, if I show you on Excel, everyone, and I have a sales column with me, right? I can go to data and then we have data analysis on the right side. Under data analysis, I can go to descriptive, which is descriptive statistics. And when I press OK, I can choose column N. I will choose my labels in the first row and I will output the values in Q2 along with the summary statistics. Now, what it does is for that selected column, which is sales column, it will give us a bunch of information, as you can see. And this is very, very helpful. As you can see, it is giving us the mean, that is the average. We have the standard error, which is not important for us right now. We have the median, the mode, the standard deviation, the sample variance, kurtosis, skewness, range, minimum, maximum, sum, and count. Now, why did ChatGPT not give us the same column? Because when I say describe, I did not really tell it what I wanted. But on the other hand, if I said, give me descriptive statistics for the sales column, now we are being more specific where I'm specifying which column I want and exactly what type of description I want. So if you notice, it's very similar to the one we are getting on Excel. Right now, it is giving us the count, the mean, standard deviation, the minimum 25, 50, 75 percentile, and the maximum. Why not the skewness and the kurtosis? You can ask it. So I can actually go and tell it, also add skewness, and kurtosis. So if you notice, you can literally, like a chatbot, continue to have a conversation with it, and it works perfectly. You have 8.13 and 176.73. You can verify the number, 8.13, 176.73. Now you might say, but Havish, like, what does it even mean? Like, we haven't done skewness and kurtosis before. That is where I can move between coding and generative AI. That means I will first acknowledge with a thanks, and now I'll say, put this in a table format. Also, give a one-line explanation for each. So what we're doing is we are first putting this in a table format, but more importantly, I also want an explanation of what do these numbers even mean. Maybe some of you might not be very sure what standard deviation is. Again, as you can see, now this is the generative AI part that is blended with Python. So now you notice it also gives us a meaningful explanation that, hey, you know what? Standard deviation is the dispersion of sales values from the mean. And if you see, skewness indicates a right skew distribution of sales value. Kurtosis shows a high peak of the data. Again, this isn't really a statistics workshop, so I'll not get into detail. If you're interested, you can continue to ask it more questions that please explain to me in a more detailed manner, right? Going back, what if I want a description of each column? What that means is, see, right now, it gave us a statistical description, which is okay. But what if I want a table and I want a description of each column from a business perspective? Like, what are the KPIs I can evaluate? What type of calculations can I perform? So now when I tell it, create a table description of each column, and most importantly, what is the possible analysis I can do on it? This is basically a consultant, right? Just like my role as a consultant is to explain to a client how I can analyze each of the columns that have been given. You can see here. That's pretty good, right? So it is taking a list of all the 15 columns, giving you a description as well as the possible analysis. Again, if you notice, this is beautiful. Let me expand it. So I have the column, the description, and the possible analysis. Let me take an example. For example, we have category. It is the main category of the product ordered, and we can identify the top selling categories and optimize inventory management. So that's a possible analysis that it is giving to me. And you can be very greedy where you can say, thanks, I want at least 5 possible analysis on each column. I mean, why stick with one? Why not ask it to give you 5? And as again, you can see, it will take about 10-15 seconds because I'm asking it to do quite a lot. But as you can see, it's literally building 5 possible analysis for each of the 15 column. And this is fantastic. When we work in the corporate, everyone is a consultant. It is very common for a client to give us a BRD or an FRD, like a business requirement document. And you can imagine the amount of time that we have to spend, to sit down and create a list of all the possible analysis that we can perform. And as you can see here, just in a few lines of code, it is doing it completely. So it's not just writing code, it's also using its intelligence to give you ideas. This is as good as a consultant, right? So that would be the final result. And if I can show you, check this out. This is fantastic because now look at this. I mean, I have 5 possible analysis that I can do on each of the column. Let's take an example. Sales. I can look at overall revenue, top selling products. I can monitor sales trend over time, growth opportunities. I can analyze the correlation between sales and profit. For example, is there a correlation between higher sales and higher profit? Identify low sales period because I want to plan a promotional activity. I can segment sales as per different cut for an in-depth, more granular drill down analysis, right? Okay, moving on. Now let's come to the real part. How do you create a chart? So far, we have only done basic data preparation, right? Like we understand what the data is, what we can analyze, but then how do I sort of create a chart? Now I'm going to type it. That way you will relate to it better. So I'm going to tell it, thanks. Now I'll continue. I'm going to tell it, show me top 5 customer name by the sum of sales. Now what it does is, it again groups the data. As you can see, it is using something called group by. And in case you're thinking, Havish, but this is not how we do it on Excel. You know what? This is exactly how you do it on Excel. If you notice, let me remove this. All of us know that we can do a sum if, isn't it? I can do a sum if. But now if you see, I also have a group by. Group by and pivot by are two new functions. They are only available in Microsoft 365. But I just wanted to show you how similar Excel is now to programming. So what it does is, it is doing group by, very simple to understand. On what? On the column customer name. What is the value it is taking? It is taking the sales value. What type of aggregation? It is taking the sum. Remember, it could be sum, average, maximum, minimum, count. And it tells me Tom, Tamara, Greg, Christopher, Sean. Let's verify the result. So if I go back and I make a pivot table, keep the customer name and the sales value, I will sort my data largest to smallest. And finally, I will only see the top 5 value. So let's change that to top 5. Check this out. Tom, Tamara, Greg, Christopher, Sean. And we got exactly the same answer here as well. Tom, Tamara, Greg, Christopher, Sean. But I'm not just happy with that. I want to put this in a column chart. So I'll say, put this in a column chart. Now it is using a library called matplotlib. For those of you who have not worked on Python earlier, this is one of the most popular libraries that you have to learn. So we are using matplotlib, and as you can see, very simple to understand. This is the size of the visualization. Now it tells me what is the kind. That means what is the type of chart that I want to create. In this case, I want to make it a bar chart. This is the color. What is the title? Top 5 customer by sum of sales. And this is my X label. This is my Y label. And that is it. As you can see, we get our chart. Now you might wonder, but Havish, I can make this on Excel as well. Like I can go to insert, and make a column chart. Like what's the big deal? The big deal is, what if I ask you to put the average, right, of all these 5 on the chart? So the average right now is, I can show you, the average right now is 36,770, isn't it? What if I ask you to put it on the chart? That means you will have to do it manually, because we know that pivot tables can't be modified. I can't go and, update a value directly on the pivot table. But here what I can do is I can say, thanks, add a horizontal line, average of top 5. But not just that. I will also tell it, remove the y-axis, add data label to all columns, top customer in green, bottom customer in red, others in gray color. Beautiful, right? Look at the number of instructions I'm giving it. I'm telling it I want a horizontal line. That is the average of the top 5. I want to remove the y-axis, add a data label, top customer in green, bottom in red, and others should be in gray color. And if you notice, it does everything for me. And the final output that you get is like this. Brilliant, right? We have top, bottom, and we also have this. Okay. The next example I want to show you is a correlation matrix, something that looks like this. But let's take a 1-minute pause. Let me know if there are any questions that you have.
Sorry, I joined late, but for the Chat GPT, you have given the input as your data, right? The data was your input, right?
Yeah, I've just uploaded the Excel file on which we are working. And then I asked it to read the file, describe the columns to me, and then I continued creating the visualization.
Okay. Okay.
Great. Anyone else? Any other question?
Yeah, Havish, after, learning this, that how using Chat GPT, we analyze the data and get the tables and the possible analysis in different forms.
Right.
So there be any motivation left for a person like me who has not been able to do such things in Excel to learn Excel? Or does it put a guy who who knows doing it on Excel in any better position than me?
If the question is that learning Excel has made you a better user and being able to pick it up faster, absolutely. Because at least you can visualize what is it that you're trying to analyze and how do you want to present it to the client. See, at the end of the day, the tool doesn't matter, right? For example, if I did not know I want to create a horizontal line, and how do I articulate it to a client? Like I can't just go to a client and if the client asks me, hey, why did you create a line and I don't have an answer? Like that doesn't make any sense, right? So my point is that the tool doesn't matter. I can do this on Power BI. I can do it on Excel, on Tableau, or maybe another tool that will come in the future. This is just one tool that we're looking at. But Python is just not like any other tool because it's the most popular general programming language in the world. And like it or not, Python is around you, right? I mean, it is there on Chat GPT, Gemini, even on Excel now. So I think each of them has their own role to play. It is not that it is going to replace Excel, but what will happen is that everything will be blended together in the future, where it will be so seamless where we are switching between generative AI, Excel, Power BI, and Python that, it's not that you're thinking, okay, half a day I'll work on Excel and then I'll move to Python. It's not going to be like that. I think all the tools are going to be integrated with each other.
Right. And the objectivity of the data, the analysis which you get this way using Chat GPT, and if somebody uses it, he knows how to work on Python. So will there be any difference? I don't see that there will be any difference. Rather, it is more analytical. It is giving me more.
This is much better because it is giving you all the comments, right?
Yeah.
So at every step, it is explaining to you how it works. And if you say, but Havish, even this is too much for me, I can tell it, I have no idea of Python. Explain this code to me in simple steps. And what it does is, taking away all the technical details, it gives you the most simple possible explanation. So if you notice, it can't get any easier than this, right? Calculate the average sales, set up the plot, assign color to the bars, create the bar chart, add the horizontal line. And trust me, I always tell people this, that as a consultant, it's very easy to confuse a client by being very complicated and using a lot of jargon. Simplifying all these things is very difficult. You actually need to be an expert and very confident in what you do to explain it in a way that others can understand, right? And that is exactly what it is doing. Like a beautiful, amazing consultant, it is actually breaking it down into the most simple steps possible, explaining to you block by block how everything is working. Right? Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's do one more. Now, I want to create a correlation matrix. Of course, we can do a correlation on Excel as well, as you can see, everyone. If I want to see correlation between sales and profit, I can simply select Correl. I can choose column L and column O, and it tells me there is a 0.48 correlation, which is a moderately high. I mean, it's not like it is positive, but at the same time, it's not a high positive, which means that yes, sales and profit do tend to go up at the same time, but there isn't a very high positivity. So maybe I'm growing my sales at the expense of losing out on my profitability, right? Again, as you can see, all I have to do is to come back and I'll do it a little faster. I'll just copy the code and I'm going to tell it as simple as that, create a correlation matrix for 4 different fields: sales, profit, discount, and quantity. It's a very simple line of code. What it does is it takes the data, basically from the data, it takes these 4 columns that we wanted. It is creating a correlation matrix. and this is the value. But I would like to plot it. So I will say, please visualize it. Because it only made a table for me. When I ask it to visualize it, again, as you can see, it is using Seaborn and Matplotlib, and that's the answer. This, everyone, becomes your correlation matrix. Right? For example, between discount and sales, you can see there is a negative or a zero correlation. What that tells me is that there really is no correlation between sales and discount. Sometimes when I offer a higher discount, my sales drop. Sometimes when I offer a lower discount, my sales increases, right? So this basically means there is no pattern between sales and discount. Okay, let's do something a little more advanced now. Now I want to do something called a cluster analysis. First, let me show you what it looks like. Now this is getting into machine learning, right? Now this is what cluster looks like, everyone. I'll give you a use case for it. Let us say a bank wants to create a loyalty program for its old customers. So they identify the 50 lakh customers who have been with the bank for at least 5 years. Now, let's take an example. Let us say ICICI wants to create a loyalty program and they want to break down their 50 lakh customers into 3 buckets. So they want to have, high sales using a lot of loans with the bank, or maybe somebody who doesn't make a lot of transaction, but is a high net worth. So maybe they have a lot of possibility. Whatever the parameters are, I want to have different clusters. So what we're doing here is, if you can see, I will just come back and tell it, is there any reason why I insert prompts in individual line rather than a continuous sentence? Just for readability. I mean, you can put a full stop as well if you want, but I'm always habitual to breaking into different lines. I feel it is easier to write and understand when you write it in different lines, right? So this is my prompt, everyone. I would like to show sum of sales on x-axis, sum of profit on y-axis, and the region and the cluster. So if you notice, very simple, sum of sales on x-axis, sum of profit on y-axis, and a cluster of all the regions that we have. So if you notice, let me zoom in. You can see there are 23 regions I have, and it does a fairly good job. It tells me profit on the Y, sales on the X, and a cluster. But here's the thing, right? Right now, there is no cluster. It is only a scatter chart. If you think about it, it is just assigning a different color to all the 23 regions we have. But that's not what we want. We want to break the regions into different clusters. So I can tell it, break into 5 clusters. So it's a follow-up on the previous output that it gave to me. Now this is coming into sklearn. So those of you who have not done it before, we have one of the most popular libraries in Python called scikit-learn. This is what allows you to do machine learning, right? So if you notice, it is using sklearn, right? And it is using something called k-means. So there are 2 popular ML methods. One is called k-means and the other is called KNN. So one of them is supervised, the other one is unsupervised. I'll not get into detail. If you want, you can go ahead and read about it. But these are the most popular clustering methods that we use. So what it is doing k-means. And as you can see, now it is giving us 5 clusters. So we have cluster 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. But here's the thing, right? I did not tell it, I did tell it I want 5 clusters, but what if I ask it to find out the correct number of clusters? So what I'll do is, I will tell it, find the appropriate number of clusters. Ignore the spelling, it doesn't matter. So now what it does is, do you see this? It is writing the code to calculate the appropriate number of clusters. It is not assuming that we want 3 or 5 clusters. And if you see the output, it uses the most popular method called the elbow method, right? So again, if you Google elbow method, again, I'll not get into detail, but this is the idea of the elbow method. Elbow method allows us to find out at what point does the sort of the line plateau a little bit? And at that point, we decide how many clusters are there. See, you still have to pick up a book on statistics and machine learning and read it. Chat GPT is going to write the perfect code for you. There's no question about that. Like in this case, if I ask it, how many clusters do you recommend? See, from its own perspective, it is trying to help you. If you read it with me, it says that the elbow method helps you identify the appropriate number of clusters where the rate of decrease WCSS within cluster sum of square slows down significantly. Now, if you say, but Havish, this is not enough, I want more detailed understanding, then you have to pick up a statistics 101 book and read about it, right? But again, if you notice, it says there should be ideally 3 clusters. So I will now ask it, apply 3 clusters So there are a lot of terms that I'm ignoring. For example, it is saying avoid overfitting. If we choose a very large number of clusters, we call it overfitting, which means that we are needlessly trying to force something into a cluster. But again, as you can see, 0, 1, and 2 like this. But how do you know which region comes in which one? So I'm going to ask it, add data label for, no, I'll just say add region name as well. So that when you take a copy of the visualization and show it to someone, they should also know which one of them you're referring to, right? So if you notice, it's pretty good. I have a list of all the regions as well in all the 3 clusters, 0, 1, and 2. And if you also tell it, thanks, give a more meaningful name to the 3 clusters, it will not just call it clusters 0, 1, and 2. If you notice, it is going to give it a more meaningful descriptive name: high sales, high profit; low sales, low profit; and moderate sales, moderate profit, which I think makes perfect sense. If you already had something on your mind, you could have told it that as well, and it would have done that. In this case, I'm asking it to do it for me. So let me put a yes. So if you notice, now we have steady performers, underperformers, and top performers. I think I like that name quite a bit. Because see, none of the regions are in losses. So everybody is profitable. But we would also like to categorize into the degree of profitability. So again, if you notice, now we have underperformers, steady performers, and top performers like this. Okay. One more example. In fact, 2 more examples, then I'll come to the data cleaning part, right? So I want to make a Sankey. A Sankey, everyone, looks like this. It's a very popular consulting chart. The idea is that you have something on the left, something on the right, and the flow, the path tells you the weight. For example, if I'm selling products across 3 segments, the path thickness tells me what is the value that we are sending, right? There is no specific use case for it, but it is quite popular and a lot of consulting firms use it, right? Now, if I ask you to create a Sankey, my prompt will be, create a Sankey to show the sum of sales on the market and the segment. Now we are using a different library. We are using something called Plotly, which is here. Now see, the Sankey is known not to work when you do it on ChatGPT directly because it is a slightly more advanced visual. And we will see if it works or not. But there is a possibility it will not work. Okay, it is still attempting. Do you see this? Like I said, it was not able to make the Sankey. So now it uses a different approach. It is using Matplotlib. It is automatically auto-correcting using a different library. And as you can see, it again tries to plot it in a different manner. But this time it does a horrible job. It doesn't work. As you can see, it makes no sense, right? This is not what I wanted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it, this is not correct, but hold on. Not to worry. Just give me the code. I will run it elsewhere. So now I'm telling it, don't need to attempt to make the final visual, because after all, we're running Python on ChatGPT, right? It will not have all the functionalities with it. So I'm simply asking it, simply create the code for me. And if you notice, it is creating the entire code for you. But here's the thing, right? I mean, where are you going to run the code? For this, I will go to Google Colab. So the website is colab.research.google. It's a free website. Without needing to install anything on your computer, you can run Python, okay? So I'm going to make a new notebook. But here's the problem, right? Assuming that you know nothing of programming, you will say, but Havish, how do I even load a data here? That's the problem, right? 95% of the work will be done by ChatGPT, but the last 5% you're still dependent and stuck. So what I'll do here is in Colab, at least I'll upload my file. That much I can do. So I will take my file and upload it. Give me a moment. So if you notice, I have been able to, let me do that one more time. Okay. So give it 5 seconds. If you notice, the file is getting uploaded, but if I don't even know how to write the 2 lines of code to load the file and then continue with the rest of it, what are you going to do? You will still depend on a programmer, right? Not really. What I can do is I have this file, so I just go to ChatGPT and I will say that please help me with it. So I will say that, my file name is, and I can copy the file name from here, .xlsx, create the Python code to load this file and call it. Now, what should we call it? If you look at the previous code, it was calling the code or the data. So I have to tell it that, please call it data. So what it will do is, it will simply write the few lines of Python code for you. As you can see, it will simply say data.pd equal to pd.read Excel, and that's it. So if I copy it and I come back to Colab, if you notice, I've not written a single line of code, right? Now I can copy the rest of it. Copy, come back, paste it. Let's give it a shot. Of course, there's no guarantee. After all, it's programming. Even if it is no-code programming, expect a lot of errors to happen and a lot of tweaks required. But we can give it a shot. And as you can see, it worked. Is it perfect? I mean, you can make it better. You can customize it further. But this is fantastic. Like, it actually did it for me, right? So let me again recap. I told ChatGPT to write the code. Now, I know from experience it will not be able to do it. Don't ask me why. But then I told it, you know what, don't worry, just give me the code so I can copy it into Google Colab. The only last part that was remaining was that I don't even know in Google Colab how to write this. I mean, of course, once you do it 1 or 2 times, then you will understand what it is. There's nothing difficult here, right? It's just data is equal to pd.read_Excel and the name of the file. But I'm just saying that if you know how to use ChatGPT effectively, you can literally do it end to end without any manual work required, right? I mean, it literally writes the complete line of code for you. Okay. The final example I want to do is, okay, let me just call it Sankey. Okay. I also want to make a word cloud, and then I'll show you how to do the ETL part. So what we're doing here is I will simply ask it, hold on. Just a moment, all right? I just want to clean it up because I also have to send it back to you. But if you see, I'm simply going to ask it, create a word cloud for my top 50 customers. 15 should be okay, right? This is all right. This one should become RFM analysis. I was creating the slides earlier today. That's why you notice a few things are missing. But yeah, this I'll update later. Okay, for the word cloud, create a word cloud for top 15 customers. Let's come back. Create a word cloud for top 15 customers by sales. And as you can see, the first thing it will do is find the sum of sales for all the 796 customers that I have. Then it will sort the data in a descending order, take out the top 15, and then create a word cloud. As you can see, like this. Beautiful, right? So you imagine you can do this with open-end statements like customer complaint, customer feedback, etc. Usually it would not be the names that you're showing. I mean, it could be something much more than that you can show in this, right? Okay. And I'm going to come back to the RFM in a bit, but parallelly, let me also do the ETL part, something we haven't done so far. Okay, now see. The problem here is that I also have a folder which has multiple files in it, right? So far, we've only done one file, but if you notice, I have a folder that has sales historical, that is 3 years of data, 11, 12, 13. Sales current has another year of data, 2014, but the files don't match. The columns are not consistent. Then we also have category and we also have discount. So what we are trying to do here is, let me show you. Okay. So this is the problem, everyone. You will notice that we have sales historical that has 15, I don't remember how many columns are there, but it has a certain number of columns. And we also have, let me just zoom in like this so that you can see better. Hold on. Yeah. Yeah. So if you notice, we have sales historical that has columns. The problem is that sales current does not have the same exact column. For example, here it is called order date, but in current it is part 1, part 2, part 3. Similarly, in sales historical, it is called city, state, and country. So there are 3 different columns, but in current it has been given in a single column. So the first thing is I have to clean the data, combine the 3 years, 11, 12, 13, and then 11, 12, 13, 14 has to be combined into append, which is the fact sales. Once we have done that, then also there are 2 things that are missing. First thing is, here I have the subcategory. Also in my dimension table, I have the subcategory. So this is the primary key, this is the foreign key. But like a VLOOKUP on Excel, we have to connect both of them. Also in my discount file, again, I have to combine the market and the order priority, the ones in blue, along with the discount. So the discount will be the answer that I get. So basically 2 new columns have to be added. Category will come from dim category and discount will come from discount. And to be able to do this, I need to do some conditional column. We need to unpivot the data, promote the rows, promote the header, capitalize each word. This is what I want to show to you. So I'll keep it so that we can keep it as a reference. But the first thing is I have a folder that has 3 files in it, 11, 12, 13, and I would like to combine them. So the first thing, everyone, is combine 3 years of sales historical data into one file. So what I'm going to do is I will simply take all the 3 files. ChatGPT can accept files that are up to 500 MB in size. So remember, size will never be a problem. What I'm going to tell is combine all 3 files into one, call it sales underscore historical. So if you notice, it gives you a preview of all the 3 files. Of course, right now I'm assuming that all of them have the same heading. You can always go back and double check or ask ChatGPT to do it for you. But in this case, if you notice, it is loading the 3 files. So we have 11, 12, 13. Then if you see, it is doing something called pd.concat. Just like in Excel, we have a concatenate to concatenate multiple cells. In Python, we do concat to literally concatenate multiple files. Once it has done it, it is showing me the head. Head means the top 5 rows. So we can see that the data has been combined and it has been called sales underscore historical. If you want, you can even download it and check, right? But the thing is, it is calling it combined files. So I, will have to go and tell it that I want to call the data frame, because that is what you use in Python, sales underscore historical. Earlier, what happened was it thought that I want to call the downloaded file as sales historical, but that's not really what I wanted. I want the data frame to be called sales historical. So now if you notice, do you see this? It has replaced combined files with sales historical. Wonderful. Now, let me also load the other files. So I will come back and load 2014. So if you notice, 2014. Now, the first thing I'll do is I will ask it to check, are the columns matching? So I will say, load this, call it sales current, then tell me whether sales historical and sales current have matching columns. Now, see, usually this is work that you have to do manually, you have to do yourself. But now if you see, I can load the individual file and now I can ask it, please call it sales current. So if you notice, it is calling it sales current. And then it is also verifying for you. Do you see this? It says they're not matching exactly. But that doesn't help me. I don't know what is matching, what is not matching. So I will say, and you see, this is even prompting you. That's the best part. With AI, you're not just writing code. It is also prompting you what could be the next logical step. So you're asking it to show the column differences. That means it is showing you the columns from the historical and from the current. And as you can see, this is brilliant. It tells me that columns in sales historical were not found in sales current. That means city, state, and country and order ID were not in current. If I can remind you, look at this. In the current, obviously, there was no city, state, country because it was merged into one column. Also, there was no order ID because it was 3 different columns. And in the sales current, not available in historical, it said order ID part 1 to 3 and city, state, country. But that's the best part. Look at this. It is even telling you with its intelligence that this is possibly what is happening. Like, it is not just mechanically telling you, oh, there is a column name that is different. It is actually putting in the effort to tell you, if you notice that city, state, country seems to combine the city, state, and the country. And order ID part 1, 2, and 3 seem to be splitting the order ID. So, as a consultant, as an analyst, to me, Chat GPT and AI isn't just about saving time and being productive. It's also about getting ideas for analysis. So what am I going to do? The next step is, obviously, now that I know that the columns are not matching, right? I will have to go and tell it, please combine the order ID into one column and please split the city, state, and country into 3 columns. So we'll do it one by one. I will say in sales current, please combine order ID part 1, 2, 3 into a single column. So now if you see, just like in Excel, you would have done a concatenate of 3 columns. What it is doing now is it is taking the 3 columns that we have, which is part 1, part 2, and part 3 into a single column. And if you notice, it is also dropping the old column. So it is very smart, right? Because after you have combined it, it says, but why do you need to have the old column with you? So if you notice, it is dropping the old one and even telling you what it did. So now if you see the new data, look at this. We have the row ID, order date, ship date, and look at this. At the end, we have the order ID. Beautiful, right? Now I'll say thanks. Now I'll also say split city, state, country into 3 columns using comma and space as the delimiter. Now, if you're wondering, but Avish, why did you say comma and a space? See, that you have to be very careful about. If you look at this value, my city, state, and country actually has a comma and a space between Sacramento and California. So you cannot choose only the comma or only the space as a delimiter. Obviously, right? You have to choose both of them. So I'll say split city, state, country into 3 columns using comma and space as the delimiter. So now, just like earlier, it merged 3 columns. Now it is splitting the column. The function it is using is called the split function. And do you see the delimiter here? Comma followed by a space. Again, it is removing the original column because we don't need it. And now if you see, we have city, state, and country. So basically 4 new columns have been created like this. If you would like to double check, you can again say, can you again check if columns are matching in both? Obviously, after I've done it, before continuing, I would always want to double check just to be sure. Now see, the only thing is it says a false because the order could be different. So I'm going to tell it order could be different. Do the names match? After all, we don't really care about the order of the columns matching. So now if you notice, if I say, are the names matching? It tells me, yes, Havish, the names are matching, right? Okay. Now I want to append both of them. So I'll say, thanks, append sales historical and sales current into a new TF called fact_sales. Let me also show you what we are trying to do. If you notice, we have historical, which had the correct columns. In current, we merged part 1, part 2, part 3 into order ID. We split city, state, country into 3 columns. Now that the columns are matching, I'm appending both of them so that I'm getting a new table called fact_sales. So now again, if you notice, it says I have appended into fact_sales. Fabulous. But the problem is I only have the subcategory. And the thing is, I also want the category. For this, I will have to take another file called the category file. This, everyone, is my dimension table. So if you notice, I can show you the file first. And if you look at the file, there are a few problems with it, which you will see very clearly. First problem is that everything is text. So maybe the heading will not get detected properly. There are these null values which we have to fill up. And also everything is in uppercase. I would like to change it into proper case. Why? Because in the fact says everything was in proper case. If you notice, here everything was given. Look at the subcategory. Chairs, supplies, phone. Only the first letter is capitalized, right? So what will I do? I will not make any change on Excel. I will do everything on Chat GPT. I will upload my category file. What we'll do now is to say, read it. Now see, before knowing for sure how we want to fix it, I want to read it. So what it does is it loads it and it tells me NaN. NaN means not a number, basically a missing value. Now, do you see this? It is also giving you a prompt. Amazing, right? It's telling you, Havish, do you maybe want to fill the missing values? So let me select that. Now, what it does is very smartly, like you do on Excel, it is filling the missing value ffill. Ffill means forward fill. That means that the value from the previous row is getting copied below. So now the data looks a lot better like this. But I would also like to change, change to a proper case. That means I want only the first letter to be capitalized. Everything else should be lowercase. If you notice, do you see this? Now everything has become proper case. And now I'm going to tell it, merge. Let me also check the name it is given. It is calling it category data. No, I want to call this dim underscore category. After all, it's a dimension table, right? It only has details about your data. So this is called dim underscore category. Now I'll say merge fact_sales with dim underscore category. Now see, it might pick up the column automatically, but if you tell it, there is no harm. I can always say on the subcategory column. Now, if I can just show you, you can see very clearly that subcategory column is available in both. In the dim category, it is primary key, which means it is unique, appearing only one time. There are 17 rows for 17 subcategory. And in the fact sales, it is foreign key because all the 70 subcategories have been sold multiple times. So if you notice, do you see this? It has added a new column called category. And we can also verify. See, chairs is in furniture, supplies is in office supply, phones is in technology. Just like you do a VLOOKUP in Excel and a join on SQL. And we have a final file now, which is the discount file. Now, the discount file also has a very common problem that we encounter. So if you notice, right now, these headings are additional. There is a merge cell that should not be there. And the data is in a cross tabular format. It is in a pivot format. That means I have to unpivot it. But before we do all of that, let me load the data. And even before doing that, I need to calculate the order priority. So I'm going to tell it, thanks, in the order, in the fact sales, please add a column for my order priority. This, everyone, is like an if statement that we do on Excel. So if you notice, what I'm saying is add a column for order priority, and the conditions are sales less than 1,000 is low, sales less than 2,500 is medium, sales less than 5,000 is high, else it is critical. Right? So now I'm referring, because I've loaded 4 different things: sales historical, sales current, fact sales, and dim category. I'm specifying that I want you to do this on the fact sales. So if you notice, look at this, it is creating an order priority. And you can clearly see 1822 will come as medium, 4164 will come as high. So it's working perfectly. Right? Now I will load my final file, that is discount. So I will load my discount and ask it, call this dim underscore discount. We would like to follow the convention. Now, in the discount, it is a little more difficult because we are actually merging on 2 columns. That means market and order priority. The combination of market and order priority has to be matched with the market and the order priority on the fact sales. So what we'll do is, once I call it dim discount, I will now tell it, no, first we have to clean it. Do you see these rows are not coming correctly? But that's the best part. Chat GPT is even prompting you that, Havish, maybe do you want to reformat headers? Let me do that. And as you can see, it is now doing a drop. That means it is dropping the first 4 rows and it works perfectly. Now I'll tell it, please unpivot my data. Something you do on Power Query, Tableau, pretty much on all the different platforms. So this data is already pivoted. We would like to convert it into a tabular format. So when I say unpivot my data, look at this. These 4 order priorities and 7 markets, everyone, will become 28 rows because low will come 7 times, medium will come 7 times, and so on. So if you notice, the same data basically has been unpivoted like this. And finally, I can say, thanks, merge market and order priority in dim discount with fact underscore sales. That's it. So this is a multi-column lookup, which either you can do with VLOOKUP or with XLOOKUP. And now if you see, it has merged on these 2 columns. You can even see the code here. Do you see this? It is merging on market and order priority, which is a left join. And you can see that it has got the discount rate as well. I'll just verify one of them for you. If you see the first one, the market is, just a moment. Okay, I can't actually see the market, but you have to take my word for it that it is working perfectly, right? And now, once everything is done, we can also export the data. And without writing a single line of code, if you notice, I've been able to, check this out, literally clean the data, append the file, fix the column, concatenate, split, do the merge, multi-column merge, conditional column. And now I can export it as a final file. And as you can see, it is saving the file for me. Let me download it and show to you that it is working perfectly. Check this out. That's it. This is your entire data. How do I prove it to you? You can see that if I look at the order date, everyone, let me just apply a filter. Look at this. In the order date, do you see this 11, 12, 13, 14? And if you look at the end, you will also see that we have order priority and the discount rate, right? Even though the category is not coming, which is a little surprising, but okay, you can always go back and tell it that please include the category column as well. Yeah, the category did not get picked up. That's all right. We can ask it to do it. Let me close this. Kshitij, we can, but again, even when you are doing this as a programmer, you will want to break it into blocks because otherwise, how will you do the testing? When something breaks, how will you test it? Where is the audit trail? The other thing is that how do you make it modular? So maybe one part of the code is fixed and the other one changes. If you make everything one big line of code, that might not be the best approach. But yes, the answer to your question is we can do it. First, let me show you that it is working perfectly. Hold on. So while as a user, you will say it's exciting to have everything in one code. Generally, in practice, you will never do that. But anyway, as you can see, it has picked the furniture as well, and it has picked it up correctly, right? But to answer Kshitij's question, I can say, thanks, combine all codes into one code. It will do that. Even though, remember, it will be quite a large code because it's literally doing everything, right? No, the only thing it did is it assumed that there is a historical sales and a current sales. So I'll have to tell it one more time. Do it again. I want all the code to be combined, even the appending of the 3 files in historical, right? With a little bit of prompting, you should be able to do it. Again, as you can see, this time it is literally taking 11, 12, 13, taking 14. Do you see this? It is combining the 3 order IDs. It is splitting the city, state, and country, dropping the 2 extra column. Then it is appending historical and current. After that, it is taking category, doing a forward fill, right? Then it is making a title. Title is basically the title case, like the proper case in Excel, adding a priority. Then it is taking the discount, removing the top 3 rows, top 4 rows. Then, melt basically is the unpivot that we do in Excel. Here we call it a melt. And then it merges both the column, right? So it's the entire code. Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. I absolutely agree. It's just that you might still want to break it into isolated part for your testing and for modularity, right? But yeah, in essence, like if you know for sure that the code will remain the same, then you can always do it in one code. Yeah, pretty much. Absolutely. Thank you for staying back, everyone. The final example I would like to show you is, I pretty much covered everything, but just one example on the RFM analysis, so that you don't feel, Havish, this is only doing like small tasks. It can actually do its intelligence as well. For example, in marketing, one of the most common analysis we perform is the RFM analysis, recency frequency monitoring. The idea is, I want to look at a customer and how recently did they purchase? When was the last time they purchased? Frequency would mean how many times are they purchasing, and monetary means what is their lifetime value. So maybe a customer's lifetime value is very high, but the last time they purchased was 2 years back, and I would like to find that. So this is what I wanted to show you, that even these very sophisticated pieces of analysis can be done. For example, if I go back and I tell it, okay, perform an RFM analysis, I want to assign weights, 50% to the monetary value, 30% to the frequency value, and 20% to the recency value. And after assigning the weight, find me the top 5 customers. Not just on the basis of sales value, but also on a combination of the weight. If you notice, because it's not just Python, it's not just writing code, it's also using its intelligence. It knows what is RFM, number of days, number of purchases, total money spent. And if you notice, it is assigning that weight that we provided, 50, 30, 20. And after doing that, it will now finally tell me that the top 5 customers as per the RFM. Okay, I can't really see the name. 1 second. Who are the top 5? Right? So here we go. I mean, actually in this data, we don't have the customer name. We had it in the previous data. That is why it is only putting the customer ID. But what it does is it tells me that, these are the 5 customers with the highest RFM score. So now there is some weight behind what you're saying. It's not that you're just looking at one simple metric. You're looking at a combination of 3 metrics. And let me also tell you, if you were to calculate the RFM analysis manually, like I was trying to do it earlier today, it's not rocket science, but it requires a lot of work, right? And that's what I would like you to see. Even though I didn't complete it, I did about 95%. You notice first I have to get a list of customers. Then I have to find the maximum date. Then I have to find the recency, the frequency, and the monetary. All are different formulas. So COUNTIF, SUMIF, MAXIF. Then I have to, again, do some normalization on the date. Then I have to do normalization of frequency and monetary. Then we have to get the compound score, which is the sum of all the 3 score. That eventually allows me to find out who my top 5 are. So just wanted to share with you that this is traditionally how as analysts we have always done it. And the fact that now Python can understand my requirement exactly. Remember, it's not just writing a standard code, like it is taking my inputs. For example, when I told it, this is the weightage, I could have even told it something more advanced. I could have given it 10 conditions. It would have kept those 10 conditions in mind to give me the answer. Right? Yeah, perfect. Right on time. That's pretty much what I wanted to cover. Please feel free to ask your questions.
The version you have used, the Chat GPT, is the paid version, because I see that there are pricing.
Yeah, this is the paid version. Free version will only allow you to upload files, 4 or 5 at a time. After that, it will ask you to pay up. This is nearly infinite. So this is the paid version. I have the version that costs 2,500 per month, but the starting point is 2,000 per month if you get ChatGPT Plus.
Okay. And
Right, and
like, is
even in
ChatGPT
Gemini,
is the part of generative AI?
yep, right.
Okay.
So this is one of the large language models that are out there. But even if you do it on Gemini also, I have the paid version with me. The free version does not allow you to upload Excel file, only images. But if you notice, even here in Gemini, in fact, I can at least show you one example. Please have a look. Let's say I have the same 3 files, everyone, 11, 12, 13. If I take 11, 12, 13 and I keep it here, I don't know if this will allow me. I'm sorry, I'll have to do it here. Upload files. Sorry about that. Yeah, I will say combine data. Pretty much similar to what ChatGPT does. So I can say combine data. In this, you don't have that preview. If you remember, in ChatGPT, when I loaded my file, you got this very nice preview like this, which you can zoom in to, almost like an Excel file. At the moment, Gemini does not offer it, at least not as much as I can remember. But if you notice, even this will write Python code. And that is why learning Python is so terribly important. Yeah.
Mhm.
See,
So
it is
Havish,
also
I
writing.
think yeah, I see this is definitely useful. Okay. Like as you uploaded the data, and I understand this is the static data, but having said that, we work in a corporate environment where data obviously has a crucial importance into it. Is it something where you get data security and all those things, like as
I
this
mean,
is your personal account, right?
in the scope of today's session, that is not a discussion I want to get into. One
No,
is the
but
technical
does
answer
that
in terms
assure
of.
you that you shared this data and your
No, I'm
data
going to
is
pass
going to
that
be
question for now because
okay,
there is
fine.
no clear, simple answer to that. It depends on what model you're using, what type of subscription you have. What do you mean by data security? Does data security mean that it will not retain the data? Does it mean that it will not retain the data after a few hours? Or does it mean that it has a zero retention policy? So
Uh,
that's your question might be very
yeah, I
simple.
understand.
It's a
Yeah.
very detailed answer. So yeah, I mean, today I might probably want to skip it, but I'll be happy to connect with you maybe on LinkedIn and discuss that in more detail.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, cool. No issues. Yeah, thanks.
Great. Any other question, anyone? Anything on your mind? And do remember, whatever I've shown you today in terms of the visualizations, the correlation matrix and the column charts and the formatting, almost all of that can be done on Python as well, because after all, Python is there on Excel as well. So you're not just learning it for Gemini and for Chat GPT and for learning Python for Python's sake. You're actually going to become a better Excel user as well. In fact, I will even go to the extent to say that it is a necessity. You can't even call yourself a advanced Excel user if you don't know how to run Python, at least a little bit, on Excel, right? So yeah, I mean, in the future, Excel users will also be expected to learn Python, just like you have to learn VLOOKUP and pivot table, whether you like it or not. Similarly, you have to learn Python, whether you like it or not, right? Yeah, so this is the combined data for 11, 12, 13. I haven't used Gemini a lot. In fact, Gemini only added this feature a few months back. ChatGPT has had it for a very long time. So I don't really use Gemini for it, but at least so I can show you whether it is working or not. Hold on. Okay, it is saving it as a CSV, not as a Excel, which is all right. But if I see order date, yep, seems to be working. 33760. That's the right number. Perfect. Any other questions, anyone? Otherwise, we're good to
Yes,
wrap.
I reached Ashish the site, and basically I was checking some video related to Copilot, which is based on Excel, and all the working and the comments was going into Excel directly. So is there any way to do it by ChatGPT directly in Excel and without using any extra Chrome browser or something like that?
We'll have to repeat that. What is it that you're trying to do on Excel?
For example, all the analysis that you have done on Chrome right now, I have to do copy and paste all the time, right? In the Excel workbook in which I am working on exactly. So, but the Copilot has a feature like you can use it
No, no,
within the
no.
Excel.
It is, I mean, they have introduced it, but I mean, it is very new. Eventually, that is the goal, that you don't even need to go to Chat GPT. If I could just give you a simple example, everyone. Let's say I have item sales ABC and 10, 30, and 20. I will have to save the file on my OneDrive folder because you need to have the file on OneDrive to be able to
Bhavish,
run.
we are not able to see your screen, I think.
Let me reshare it.
Okay.
Okay. So as you can see, I'm just saving a file on OneDrive on my computer. So I have item sales like this. Now I of course have Copilot with me. This is Copilot for Microsoft 365. This has costed me 33,000 for 1 year, right? So I can click on Copilot, and here I should be able to say for D3 to E6, write a Python code to create a column chart. So this is generally much slower than what it is on Chat GPT. And as you can see, in this case, it did not even work. Yeah, I mean, I'm not really sure because they've just released it. So maybe I have to ask the question in a different way. See, it did work finally. First, it said I can't do that, but then it actually gave me the Python code. So if you notice, I can now just copy this code. If I can just complete this example without leaving Excel, I can copy the code. I can write equal to py, everyone, paste the code. Now, the only thing is it is hard coding the value of item in sales. Nevertheless, let me first run it. And as you can see, we are able to get the answer. Just a moment. How do I, okay, I'm not really sure how to put this in a cell. It's coming in a cell, but I would like this to come on top. Anyway, that we can figure out later, but as you can see, it is working. The only thing is, you will say, but Havish, right now the ABC 10, 15, 20, got picked up hard-coded. But what if you want to pick it from the cell? There's not really much to it. What I can do is I can simply say df is equal to Excel and then sort of take my data like this. And let me just try to fix it. Just a moment. I don't really use Python on Excel that much, but hold on. 1 second. This might also need to be called item and sales. I don't know the exact syntax here, but yeah, I'm sorry about that. I mean, I'll have to go and double check
You need
once.
to go bar as item. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, anyway, but that's okay. But you've got the basic idea that right now, Python codes can be written, but it is not directly coming within the Python function that you're writing. So this little bit of manual work is required. But I would like to believe eventually that's what is going to happen, that you can write a natural language query. It will write the Python code and then create the visualization for you.
Okay, thank you so much, Harish.
Excellent. So thank you, everyone. The recording and the files will be shared with you. We are all connected on LinkedIn. If we aren't, please connect with me on LinkedIn. And any questions you have, I'll be happy to pick that up and have a conversation online. Perfect. Thank you so much for taking out the time. I hope you found the session useful. This is still an experimental session because not a lot of companies are using it. It will take a lot of time to get used to it, but this is just preparing you for the future. Maybe today the skill might not be that important, but then needless to say, in another year or two, this is going to become an integrated skill, right? Excellent. Thank you, Kshitij. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Amish.